examined him. 50 of the world's best minds had run every test known to medical science. They had flown in specialists from Switzerland, Japan, and Germany. The medical bills alone could have funded a small hospital, but money meant nothing when the richest man in the city was slowly fading away. Dr. Patricia Wong, the lead physician, stood at the foot of his bed, staring at the latest test results with defeat written across her face. "I don't understand it," she whispered to her colleague. "Every organ is failing, but we can't find the cause. It's like his body is just shutting down from the inside." Benjamin's breathing was shallow, his skin pale and cold. His mother, Eleanor Cross, sat beside him holding his hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please," she begged the doctors. "There has to be something. Anything." But there wasn't, or so they thought. At 11 p.m., when the day shift doctors had gone home and the mansion grew quiet, Amara Johnson pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway toward the medical wing. She had worked the night shift at the Cross Mansion for 2 years, invisible to most of the people who lived and worked there. A 28-year-old African-American woman with intelligent brown eyes and a gentle smile, she moved through the house like a ghost, cleaning and caring for a home that could fit 50 families. Tonight was different though. Tonight, as she entered Benjamin's room to clean, she stopped and really looked at him. Not as the billionaire employer she barely knew, but as a human being who was suffering. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to watch someone die when you might be the only person who can save them? What would you do if you had the knowledge to help but no one would listen to you? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories like this one. Amara had a secret that no one in the house knew. Before she became a housekeeper, she had been a chemistry major at the local university. She had been just 1 year away from graduating when her father lost his job and her family needed money for her younger brother's medical treatments. She had dropped out to work and support them, but she had never stopped learning. Her textbooks were still stacked in her small apartment, and she read research papers online during her breaks. As she quietly dusted around Benjamin's bed, she noticed something the doctors hadn't. His fingernails had a slight blue tint. His breathing pattern was wrong too, not like someone with organ failure, but like someone whose nervous system was being attacked. She had seen similar symptoms in her chemistry textbooks when studying toxicology. Amara felt her heart race. Could it be possible that Benjamin wasn't dying from some mysterious disease, but from something much more deliberate? Amara Johnson had always been invisible and she preferred it that way. In the 2 years she had worked as a night shift housekeeper at the Cross Mansion, she had perfected the art of moving through the enormous house without being noticed. She cleaned the marble floors, dusted the priceless artwork, and maintained the perfect order that the Cross family expected, all while the wealthy residents slept peacefully in their beds. But tonight, as she wheeled her cart past the medical wing that had been set up in what used to be the mansion's library, she couldn't ignore the steady beeping of machines and the hushed voices of concerned family members. Benjamin Cross, the man whose home she had been cleaning for 2 years, was dying and 50 doctors couldn't figure out why. Amara paused outside his room, her hand resting on her cart handle. Through the partially open door, she could see him lying there, connected to various machines, his once vibrant face now gaunt and pale. Dr. Patricia Wong was speaking quietly to his assistant, James Rivera, near the window. "The latest blood work shows the same thing," Dr. Wong was saying, frustration clear in her voice. "All his organs are failing simultaneously, but we can't identify any disease, virus, or condition that would cause this pattern. It's like his body is attacking itself, but we can't find the trigger." James ran his hands through his dark hair, exhaustion written on his face. He had been Benjamin's friend since college, long before the billions came. "There has to be something. Ben is the strongest person I know. He doesn't just give up." Eleanor Cross, Benjamin's 70-year-old mother, looked up from her chair beside the bed. "What about the treatments from Germany? The specialists from Japan?" "They've all examined him, Mrs. Cross," Dr. Wong replied gently. "Everyone agrees that his condition is unlike anything they've seen before. We're running out of options." Amara felt something stir in her chest. She knew she should continue with her work, move on to the next room, maintain her invisibility. But something about what she was hearing didn't sit right with her. In her years of chemistry study, she had learned that when something seemed impossible, it usually meant you were looking at the problem from the wrong angle. She quietly entered the room, beginning her usual routine of emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces. The adults continued their conversation, paying no attention to the housekeeper who was just doing her job. As Amara worked, she found herself studying Benjamin more closely than she ever had before. She had seen him around the house over the past 2 years, usually rushing between meetings or phone calls, always polite but distant. He was the kind of employer who said good morning if he saw you but never really looked at you. Now, seeing him like this, she noticed details that seemed important. His skin wasn't just pale, it had a slight gray undertone that reminded her of something from her toxicology textbook. His breathing was labored, but not in the way she would expect from someone with heart or lung failure. And his fingernails? They had the faintest blue tint around the edges. Amara's pulse quickened. She had studied heavy metal poisoning in her chemistry classes, and she remembered the specific symptoms. Organ failure that progressed slowly, breathing difficulties, and the telltale blue tint to fingernails. But heavy metal poisoning was usually easy to detect in blood tests. Unless her mind raced through the possibilities. There were newer synthetic compounds, ones that mimicked heavy metal poisoning but were harder to detect with standard tests. She had read about them in recent research papers, substances that were being studied for industrial use but could be incredibly toxic in small amounts. "Excuse me," Amara said quietly, then immediately regretted speaking. All eyes turned to her and she felt her cheeks grow warm. She was supposed to be invisible. "Yes?" Dr. Wong asked, not unkindly but clearly surprised that the housekeeper had something to say. Amara's mouth went dry. These were some of the most educated, powerful people she had ever met, and here she was, a college dropout with a cleaning cart, about to question their medical expertise. "I'm sorry," she said, starting to back toward the door. "I shouldn't have." "No, please," Eleanor Cross said, standing up from her chair. There was something in the older woman's eyes, a desperate hope. "What were you going to say?" Amara looked at Benjamin, then at the concerned faces around her. She thought about her chemistry textbooks, about the symptoms she had studied, about the possibility that she might be wrong and would embarrass herself. But then she thought about a man dying when maybe, just maybe, she could help. "Has anyone tested for synthetic heavy metal compounds?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The newer industrial ones that don't show up on standard toxicology screens?" Dr. Wong frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you exactly?" "She's Amara," James said, recognizing her. "She works here." "But what do you mean about synthetic compounds?" Amara felt her confidence growing slightly. "I studied chemistry in college. I know I'm probably wrong, but his symptoms, the way his organs are failing, the breathing pattern, the blue tint around his fingernails, it looks like heavy metal poisoning, but if your tests aren't finding traditional metals." Dr. Wong stepped closer, suddenly very interested. "You studied chemistry?" "Yes, ma'am. I was a year away from graduating when I had to leave school for family reasons. But I've kept up with research, and there are these new synthetic compounds that can cause the same symptoms as traditional heavy metal poisoning but are much harder to detect." The room fell silent. Dr. Wong looked at Eleanor, then at James, then back at Amara. "What specific compounds are you thinking of?" Amara's heart pounded. This was it. She was either about to help save Benjamin's life or make a complete fool of herself in front of some of the most important people in the city. "There's a compound called methylated thallium derivative," she said, remembering the research paper she had read just last month. "It's used in some new industrial processes, but it's incredibly toxic in small amounts. The symptoms would develop slowly over months, and it wouldn't show up on standard tests unless you knew specifically what to look for." Dr. Wong was already pulling out her phone. "I need to call the lab immediately. If you're right, we've been looking for the wrong thing this entire time." As the doctor stepped away to make her call, Eleanor Cross approached Amara, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for speaking up." Amara nodded, still not quite believing what had just happened. She looked at Benjamin, lying so still on the bed, and whispered a silent prayer that she was right, that maybe she could help save the life of a man she barely knew but who didn't deserve to die. The next few hours would determine if the invisible housekeeper had just become the most important person in the room. 3 hours later, Dr. Wong returned to Benjamin's room with test results that would change everything. Amara had stayed through the rest of her shift, unable to leave until she knew whether her suspicions were correct. She sat quietly in the corner, still hardly believing that anyone was taking her seriously. "The lab found it," Dr. Wong announced, her voice filled with both relief and concern. "Methylated thallium derivative, just as you suggested. It's been building up in his system for months, causing gradual organ failure." Eleanor Cross collapsed back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. "But how? How did this happen?" James leaned against the wall, looking stunned. "You mean someone has been poisoning Ben?" "For months." Dr. Wong nodded grimly. "This compound doesn't occur naturally. Someone would have had to introduce it into his system repeatedly over time. Small amounts, probably in food or drink. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. When she had suggested synthetic poisoning, she had been thinking of an accidental exposure, maybe something from Benjamin's tech companies. The idea that someone had been deliberately poisoning him made her feel sick. "Can you treat it?" Eleanor asked, reaching for her son's hand. "Yes," Dr. Wong said. "Now that we know what we're dealing with, we can start chelation therapy to remove the compound from his system. It will take time, but he should make a full recovery." The room erupted in quiet celebration. James shook Dr. Wong's hand, Eleanor wept with relief, and the medical staff began preparing for Benjamin's treatment. In all the excitement, Amara began to quietly gather her cleaning supplies, ready to slip back into invisibility. "Wait," came a weak voice from the bed. Everyone turned. Benjamin's eyes were open for the first time in days, though he still looked incredibly weak. His gaze found Amara across the room. "You," he said, his voice barely audible. "You figured it out." Amara felt her cheeks burn. "The doctors did all the work, Mr. Cross. You saved my life," he interrupted, managing the smallest of smiles. "What's your name?" "Amara Johnson, sir." "Amara," he repeated as if testing the sound of it. "Thank you." Over the next few days, as Benjamin began his treatment and slowly started to recover, Amara found herself drawn to check on his progress during her shifts. She told herself it was just professional concern, making sure his room was properly maintained for his recovery, but the truth was more complicated. She had never really looked at Benjamin Cross before, not as a person. To her, he had been just another wealthy employer, someone who lived in a different world entirely. But seeing him vulnerable, fighting for his life, had changed something in her perspective. As he grew stronger, Benjamin began to stay awake for longer periods, and he always seemed to notice when Amara was cleaning his room. At first, their conversations were brief, just him thanking her again or asking how she was feeling. But gradually they began to talk more. "You said you studied chemistry," he said one evening as she was dusting the medical equipment. "Where?" "State University," Amara replied, focusing on her work to avoid meeting his eyes. "I was in my senior year." "What made you leave?" Amara paused. She rarely talked about her personal life, especially not with employers. But something about Benjamin's genuine interest made her feel comfortable sharing. "My father lost his job and my little brother needed surgery. Medical bills were piling up and someone in the family needed to work full-time. I was the logical choice." Benjamin was quiet for a moment. "That must have been a difficult decision." "It was the right decision," Amara said, though she couldn't hide the sadness in her voice. "My brother is healthy now and my parents are back on their feet. But you gave up your dreams." Amara finally looked at him. "I helped save my family." "That's not giving up dreams, that's making them bigger." Benjamin smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him since his recovery began. "You're remarkable, Amara Johnson." She felt her heart skip and quickly returned to her dusting. "I should let you rest, Mr. Cross." "Benjamin," he corrected. "And actually, I was hoping you might stay for a few more minutes. I wanted to ask you something." Amara set down her dust cloth, curious despite herself. "The compound that was poisoning me," Benjamin said, his expression growing serious. "Someone had to have access to my food, my drinks, my personal space. Someone I trust." The weight of what he was saying hit Amara immediately. "You think it's someone in the house?" "It has to be. The question is who and why." Amara felt a surge of protectiveness for this man who had been so close to death. "What can I do to help?" Benjamin looked surprised by her offer. "You've already done more than enough. You saved my life." "But if someone is trying to hurt you, they might try again," Amara pointed out. "And I'm here every night. I see things, notice patterns. Maybe I can help figure out who's doing this." For a moment, Benjamin just stared at her, and Amara worried she had overstepped some invisible boundary. Then he reached out and gently took her hand. "Are you sure? This could be dangerous and you don't owe me anything." Amara looked down at their joined hands, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Yes, I'm sure." From that moment, their relationship shifted from employer and employee to something closer to partnership. Every night, Amara would report what she had observed during her shift. She began to pay closer attention to the household staff, to visitors, to anyone who might have had access to Benjamin's food or personal items. It was during one of these nightly conversations that Amara first realized she was falling for Benjamin Cross. Not the billionaire, not the powerful businessman, but the man who listened to her thoughts with respect, who asked about her family, who treated her like an equal despite their vastly different circumstances. She tried to push these feelings away. They came from different worlds, and there was no future in caring for someone so far above her station. But as Benjamin grew stronger and their conversations grew longer, it became harder to deny the connection growing between them. Little did she know that Benjamin was fighting the same battle, trying to understand how the quiet housekeeper who had saved his life had also somehow saved his heart. As Benjamin's strength returned and the chelation therapy continued to remove the poison from his system, Amara began her careful investigation into who might be trying to kill him. She had never thought of herself as a detective, but her years of scientific training had taught her the importance of observation and careful analysis. During her night shifts, she started paying attention to details she had previously ignored. Who had access to Benjamin's private quarters? Who prepared his meals? Who could have been introducing the poison into his system over the course of several months? The list of suspects was smaller than she had expected. Benjamin's personal chef, Carlos Martinez, had been with the family for 8 years and seemed genuinely devoted to his employer. The day shift housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, was a 60-year-old woman who had worked for the Cross family since Benjamin was a child. James Rivera, Benjamin's assistant and closest friend, had complete access but also seemed to genuinely care about Benjamin's well-being. Then there was Dr. Samuel Phillips, Benjamin's personal physician who had been treating him for minor ailments for the past year. He certainly had the medical knowledge to know about synthetic poisons, and he had been the one pushing for more aggressive treatments even when Benjamin's condition wasn't improving. Amara began to focus her attention on Dr. Phillips. During her cleaning rounds, she made sure to pay special attention to his office when he visited the house for Benjamin's checkups. She noticed that he always carried a small black medical bag and that he was very particular about Benjamin taking certain vitamin supplements. One night, as she was cleaning the medical wing after Dr. Phillips had left, Amara decided to take a closer look at the vitamin bottles he had prescribed. She carefully examined each one, noting the manufacturer, the dosage instructions, and the appearance of the pills themselves. Most of them looked normal, but one bottle caught her attention. The vitamin D supplements looked slightly different from what she remembered vitamin D looking like from her own experience. These pills had a faint metallic sheen that seemed unusual. Amara felt her pulse quicken. Could Dr. Phillips be using vitamin supplements to deliver the poison? It would be the perfect cover. Benjamin would take them willingly, trusting his doctor's recommendation, and no one would think to test vitamins for toxic compounds. But she needed proof before she could make such a serious accusation. The next day, she stayed after her shift and waited in an empty room near the medical wing. When Dr. Phillips arrived for Benjamin's morning checkup, she watched through a crack in the door as he went through his routine. He checked Benjamin's vital signs, asked about his symptoms, and then reached into his medical bag for the vitamin supplements. But what Amara saw next made her blood run cold. Dr. Phillips opened 2 bottles, both labeled as vitamin D. From one bottle he gave Benjamin 2 pills. From the other bottle he took 3 pills and put them back in his medical bag. Why would he have 2 bottles of the same supplement? After Dr. Phillips left, Amara knew she had to act quickly. She needed to get a sample of those suspicious vitamins to have them tested. But she couldn't just take them from Benjamin's supply without raising suspicion. That evening she approached Benjamin during her shift, her heart pounding with nervous energy. "I think I know who's been poisoning you," she said without preamble. Benjamin, who had been reading on his tablet, immediately gave her his full attention. "Who?" "Dr. Phillips. I think he's been putting the compound in your vitamin supplements." Benjamin frowned. "Sam? But he's been trying to help me get better. He's the one who's been pushing for more treatments." "That's exactly why it makes sense," Amara explained. "He could poison you slowly then appear to be working hard to cure you. No one would suspect the doctor who's trying to save your life." She told him about the 2 bottles of vitamin D and her suspicions about the metallic appearance of the pills. Benjamin listened carefully, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "We need proof," he said finally. "If you're right, this is attempted murder. But if you're wrong, we're destroying the reputation of a man who's been trying to help me." Amara nodded. "I know. But I have an idea." Her plan was simple but risky. The next time Dr. Phillips visited, Amara would secretly record his visit using her phone. If he was switching vitamins or doing anything suspicious with Benjamin's medication, they would have evidence. 2 days later, Amara hid in the bathroom adjacent to Benjamin's room, her phone ready to record through the slightly open door. Dr. Phillips arrived right on schedule, and Amara held her breath as she watched him go through his examination. Everything seemed normal until Dr. Phillips reached for his medical bag. Just as Amara had observed before, he pulled out 2 bottles of vitamin D. But this time, instead of giving Benjamin pills from one bottle, He opened both bottles and carefully selected specific pills from each one. The recording wasn't perfect, but it clearly showed Dr. Phillips switching between two identical bottles and being very particular about which pills he gave to Benjamin. When he left, Amara felt a mixture of triumph and horror. She had proof, but she also had confirmation that someone Benjamin trusted had been slowly murdering him for months. "We have to call the police," Amara told Benjamin as she showed him the video that evening. Benjamin watched the recording twice, his face growing darker with each viewing. "I can't believe it. Sam has been my doctor for over a year. I trusted him completely." "I'm so sorry," Amara said, reaching out to touch his hand. "I know this must be devastating." Benjamin squeezed her hand gently. "You have nothing to apologize for. You've saved my life twice now. Once by identifying the poison and now by identifying the poisoner." The next morning, Detective Thompson arrived at the Cross Mansion with a warrant to search Dr. Phillips' medical bag and to arrest him for attempted murder. When confronted with the evidence, Dr. Phillips broke down and confessed. His motive was as shocking as his crime. He had been drowning in gambling debts and had been promised a substantial sum by one of Benjamin's business rivals to eliminate him. The plan was to make it look like a mysterious illness, something that would never be traced back to deliberate poisoning. As the police led Dr. Phillips away in handcuffs, Amara felt a profound sense of relief mixed with sadness. Justice had been served, but it was heartbreaking to think of the betrayal Benjamin had endured from someone he trusted. "It's over," Benjamin said, standing beside her as they watched the police cars drive away. "Yes," Amara replied. "You're safe now." Benjamin turned to look at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart race. "Thanks to you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you for what you've done." Amara felt herself blushing. "You don't need to repay me for anything. I'm just glad you're going to be okay." But even as she said the words, she knew that their relationship had changed permanently. They had been through something intense together, something that had created a bond neither of them fully understood yet. What she didn't know was that Benjamin was already planning ways to show his gratitude, ways that would change both of their lives forever. With Dr. Phillips arrested and the source of the poison eliminated, Benjamin's recovery accelerated rapidly. The chelation therapy was working, and his body began to heal from months of systematic poisoning. But more than his physical health was improving. Something fundamental had shifted in his perspective on life. For the first time in years, Benjamin found himself looking forward to something other than business meetings and profit margins. He looked forward to his evening conversations with Amara, to hearing about her day, her thoughts, her quiet observations about the world around them. Amara, for her part, tried to maintain professional boundaries even as their conversations grew more personal. She reminded herself that she was still the housekeeper and he was still the billionaire, and that whatever connection she felt was probably just gratitude and proximity. But Benjamin had other plans. One evening, about 3 weeks after Dr. Phillips' arrest, Benjamin was sitting up in bed reading when Amara came in for her nightly cleaning routine. Instead of the usual medical equipment, she noticed that his room had been transformed. The hospital bed had been replaced with his regular furniture, and there were fresh flowers on the nightstand. "You're feeling better?" she observed, starting to dust the bookshelf. "Much better, thanks to you," Benjamin replied. He set down his book and watched her work. "Amara, I've been thinking a lot about what you told me. About leaving college to help your family." Amara felt her stomach tighten. She had been dreading this conversation, knowing it was probably time for things to return to normal. Benjamin was recovering, the crisis was over, and she could go back to being invisible. "It was a long time ago," she said, not meeting his eyes. "Not that long. You're only 28. You could still finish your degree." Amara finally looked at him, surprised by the direction of the conversation. "Mr. Cross." "Benjamin," he corrected gently. "Benjamin, I appreciate the thought, but I can't afford to go back to school. I have responsibilities." "What if you didn't have to worry about the cost?" Amara set down her dust cloth, suddenly very still. "What do you mean?" Benjamin sat up straighter, and she could see that he had been planning this conversation carefully. "I want to offer you a full scholarship. Tuition, books, living expenses, everything you need to finish your chemistry degree and continue to graduate school if you want." Amara felt the floor seem to shift under her feet. I can't accept that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because I don't deserve it. Because..." She struggled to find the right words. "Because people like me don't get opportunities like that." Benjamin stood up and walked over to her, moving slowly but steadily. His recovery really was remarkable. "Amara, you saved my life. Twice. You used your intelligence and education to solve a problem that 50 of the world's best doctors couldn't figure out. If anyone deserves an opportunity like this, it's you. Tears pricked at Amara's eyes. But what about my job? What about my family's needs? I'll make sure your family is taken care of, Benjamin said softly. Your brother's medical bills, your parents' mortgage, whatever they need. And when you finish your degree, there will be a job waiting for you at Cross Industries if you want it. We need someone with your skills in our research and development division. Amara stared at him, overwhelmed. Why would you do all this? Benjamin was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because you matter. Because your mind is too brilliant to waste on dusting furniture. Because... He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. Because I care about you. The admission hung in the air between them. Amara felt her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough, Benjamin replied. I know you're brilliant and kind and brave. I know you sacrificed your dreams for your family without hesitation. I know you risked your job to save the life of someone you barely knew. I know that in the darkest period of my life, you were the light that guided me back. Amara felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Benjamin? You don't have to give me an answer right now, he said gently. But please think about it. Please don't let what happened to me be for nothing. Let me help you achieve everything you're capable of. Have you ever had someone believe in you more than you believed in yourself? Sometimes the people who change our lives are the ones who see our potential when we can't see it ourselves. What dreams have you put aside that might still be possible? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to hear more stories of unexpected second chances. That night, Amara went home to her small apartment and sat at her kitchen table, staring at the stack of chemistry textbooks she had never been able to throw away. Benjamin's offer seemed impossible, like something that happened to other people in movies, not to housekeepers from working-class families. But as she flipped through her old organic chemistry textbook, she remembered the excitement she had felt when she first understood complex molecular structures, the pride she had taken in her research projects, the dream she had harbored of maybe working in a laboratory someday, contributing to medical breakthroughs that could help people. She thought about her brother, healthy now but still struggling to find steady work. About her parents, who had never quite recovered financially from the medical crisis that had derailed her education. What if Benjamin's offer could help all of them? The next evening, she found Benjamin in his study instead of his bedroom, a sign of how much his health had improved. He looked up when she entered, hope and anxiety warring in his expression. I've been thinking about your offer, Amara said without preamble. And? Amara took a deep breath. I would like to accept it. With gratitude. The smile that spread across Benjamin's face was brighter than any she had ever seen. He stood up and crossed the room to her, and for a moment she thought he might hug her. Instead, he took her hands in his. You won't regret this, he said. I promise. I know, Amara replied, and for the first time in years she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As they stood there in his study, hands clasped, both of them knew that this moment was about more than education or career opportunities. It was about two people who had found something unexpected in each other, something that neither money nor status could buy. It was about hope and second chances, and the possibility that love could grow in the most unlikely places. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Benjamin had wasted no time in making arrangements for Amara's return to school. He personally called the Dean of Chemistry at State University to discuss her re-enrollment and to establish the scholarship fund that would cover all her expenses. The Dean remembers you, Benjamin told Amara during one of their evening conversations. Professor Williams said you were one of the most promising students he'd ever taught. He's excited to have you back. Amara felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with Benjamin's words and everything to do with the way he looked at her when he said them. Over the past month, she had begun to notice things about him that had nothing to do with his wealth or status. The way he listened when she talked, really listened as if her thoughts were the most important thing in the world. The way he remembered details about her family, asking about her brother's job search and her mother's garden. I start classes in 2 weeks, she said, still hardly believing it was real. Part-time so I can finish my night shifts here until you're completely recovered. About that, Benjamin said, his expression growing serious. I don't want you working as a housekeeper anymore. Amara felt a flutter of panic. But I need the income and my family. I've set up a trust fund for your family, Benjamin interrupted gently. Your brother's medical debt is paid off, and your parents' mortgage is covered. You don't need to worry about money anymore. Amara stared at him, overwhelmed. Benjamin, that's too much. "It's not nearly enough for what you've done for me," he replied. "But there's something else I want to talk to you about. Something more important than money." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. Amara noticed that he moved with almost all of his former strength now. The poison was finally out of his system, and he was becoming the man she imagined he had been before Dr. Phillips had started slowly killing him. "I've been thinking about what happened," Benjamin said, still looking out the window. "About how close I came to dying, about how many people I trust who failed me, and about the one person I barely knew who saved my life." He turned back to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "I've been thinking about what really matters," he continued. "About how I want to spend the rest of my life, now that I actually have one." Amara felt her heart start to race. "Benjamin?" "I'm in love with you," he said simply. The words hung in the air between them, and Amara felt as if the world had stopped spinning. She had suspected, had hoped, had dreamed, but hearing him say it out loud was overwhelming. "You don't have to say anything," Benjamin continued quickly. "I know this is complicated. I know we come from different worlds, and I know the last thing you need is pressure from me when you're starting this new chapter in your life. But I couldn't keep it to myself anymore." Amara stood up on shaky legs, crossing the room to where he stood by the window. When she reached him, she looked up into his eyes, seeing vulnerability there that she had never noticed before. "I love you too," she whispered. Benjamin's face lit up with joy and relief. He reached out to cup her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Really?" he asked as if he couldn't quite believe it. "Really," she confirmed. "I've been trying not to because it seemed impossible, but I do. I love you." When Benjamin kissed her, it was gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was a kiss that spoke of new beginnings and second chances, of two people who had found each other against all odds. When they finally broke apart, Amara felt like she was floating. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Benjamin said, smiling down at her, "we figure it out together. One day at a time." Over the next few days, their relationship shifted into something new and wonderful. Benjamin insisted that Amara move out of her small apartment and into one of the guest suites in the mansion, at least until she finished school. "It's not about convenience," he explained when she hesitated. "It's about wanting to spend time with you. Real time, not just stolen moments during your work shifts." Amara accepted his offer with gratitude, though she insisted on paying some form of rent, even if it was just helping with household management in ways that weren't traditional housekeeping. Their evenings together became the highlight of both their days. Benjamin would tell her about his business ventures, asking for her perspective on problems he was trying to solve. Amara shared her excitement about returning to school, her nervousness about fitting in with students who were years younger, her dreams of someday contributing to medical research. "I want to start a medical research foundation," Benjamin told her one evening as they walked through the mansion's garden. "Something focused on developing better diagnostic tools and treatments. I keep thinking about how many doctors examined me and missed what you caught in one night." Amara squeezed his hand. "That's a wonderful idea. You could save so many lives." "We could save lives," Benjamin corrected. "I want you to be part of it once you finish your education. Your combination of chemistry knowledge and practical problem-solving skills is exactly what the medical field needs." As they walked among the roses and fountain, Amara marveled at how her life had changed. 6 months ago, she had been an invisible housekeeper with abandoned dreams. Now she was in love with a man who believed in her potential, returning to school, and being offered the chance to contribute to something meaningful. "Are you sure about all this?" she asked Benjamin as they sat on a bench overlooking the garden. "About us, I mean. People are going to say things. About the difference in our backgrounds, about how we met." Benjamin took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Let them say whatever they want. I know what matters. You saved my life and then you saved my heart. Nothing anyone else thinks or says can change that." Amara leaned against his shoulder, feeling more content than she had ever felt in her life. "I never imagined I could be this happy." "This is just the beginning," Benjamin said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "We have our whole future ahead of us." As they sat together in the garden, watching the sun set over the life they were building together, neither of them could have imagined the incredible journey that still lay ahead. But they were ready to face it together, with love and hope guiding their way. Benjamin's complete recovery came faster than anyone had expected. Within 2 months of Dr. Phillips' arrest and the end of the systematic poisoning, he had regained all his strength and vitality. But more than his physical health had been restored. He seemed to have found a new purpose in life that went beyond business success. The first sign of this change was his decision to completely restructure cross-industries. During a board meeting that Amara attended as his guest, something that raised eyebrows but which Benjamin didn't seem to care about, he announced that the company would be shifting 30% of its resources toward medical technology and research. "We're going to develop better diagnostic tools," he explained to the assembled executives. "We're going to fund research into rare diseases and unusual medical conditions. And we're going to make sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else because their doctors don't know what to look for." James Rivera, who had been promoted to Chief Operating Officer, smiled at his friend across the conference table. "The board approves, Ben. It's a smart investment and the right thing to do." After the meeting, as they walked back to Benjamin's office, Amara marveled at the transformation she had witnessed. "You're really doing this," she said. "You're changing everything." Benjamin stopped walking and turned to face her. "You changed everything first. You showed me what really matters." That evening, Benjamin had a surprise for Amara. He led her to a part of the mansion she had never seen before, a wing that had been closed off for renovations. When he opened the doors, she gasped. The entire space had been converted into a state-of-the-art chemistry laboratory, complete with equipment that was better than anything she had used in college. "This is for you," Benjamin said, watching her face with delight. "For your research, your experiments, anything you want to work on." Amara walked through the lab in wonder, running her hands over the pristine equipment. "Benjamin, this must have cost a fortune." "Worth every penny to see you smile like that," he replied. "Besides, I have plans for this lab. I want you to use it to develop some of those diagnostic tools we talked about." Over the following weeks, as Amara settled into her new routine of classes and lab work, she found herself falling deeper in love with both Benjamin and the life they were building together. Her professors at the university were amazed by her dedication and the quality of her work. Her research projects, funded by Benjamin's foundation, were already showing promise. "You're going to graduate summa cum laude," Professor Williams told her after reviewing her latest research proposal. "And I think you should seriously consider applying for PhD programs. Your work on rapid toxin detection could revolutionize emergency medicine." When Amara shared this news with Benjamin, his pride was evident. "A PhD," he said, pulling her into his arms. "Dr. Amara Johnson. I like the sound of that." "It's a long road," Amara cautioned. "Years more school-intensive research." "I'll be here for all of it," Benjamin promised. "Whatever you need, however long it takes." 6 months later, at Amara's graduation ceremony, Benjamin sat in the front row beaming with pride as she walked across the stage to receive her Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. She had indeed graduated summa cum laude, and she had already been accepted into PhD programs at 3 prestigious universities. After the ceremony, as they celebrated with Amara's family at an elegant restaurant, Benjamin stood up to make a toast. "To Amara," he said, raising his glass, "who proves every day that the most important discoveries come not from expensive equipment or prestigious degrees, but from curiosity, courage, and compassion." Amara felt tears in her eyes as everyone clinked glasses. Her brother, now working as a physical therapy assistant thanks to the education Benjamin had funded, grinned at her across the table. Her parents, looking healthier and happier than they had in years, beamed with pride. "Thank you," she whispered to Benjamin as they sat back down. "For what?" "For seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself." Benjamin took her hand under the table. "Thank you for saving my life in every way that matters." That night, back at the mansion, Benjamin led Amara out to the garden where they had shared so many evening walks. She noticed that the path was lit with strings of lights that hadn't been there before, and that rose petals had been scattered along the walkway. "What's all this?" she asked, though her heart was already starting to race with anticipation. "This," Benjamin said, leading her to their favorite bench, "is me asking you a question I should have asked months ago." He dropped to one knee beside the bench, pulling out a ring box that made Amara's breath catch. "Amara Johnson," he said, his voice full of emotion, "you saved my life, you changed my world, and you made me believe in love. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, but it was the look in Benjamin's eyes that made Amara's heart soar. This was the man who had believed in her when no one else would, who had supported her dreams and helped her achieve more than she had ever thought possible. "Yes," she said through her tears. "Yes, of course I'll marry you." As Benjamin slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, Amara thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, she had been an invisible housekeeper with abandoned dreams. Now she was engaged to the man she loved, starting a PhD program, and about to embark on research that could save lives. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he replied. "Forever and always." As they kissed in the garden where they had first admitted their feelings for each other, both of them knew that this was just the beginning of their greatest adventure together. Planning a wedding while starting a PhD program turned out to be more challenging than Amara had anticipated, but Benjamin was determined to make everything as smooth as possible for her. He hired a wedding planner, took care of all the logistics, and made sure that Amara could focus on her studies and research. "I don't want you to be stressed about anything," he told her one evening as they reviewed wedding invitations in his study. "This should be the happiest time of your life." "It is," Amara assured him, looking up from the invitation designs. "Though I still can't quite believe it's real sometimes." Their engagement had made headlines in the business press, with articles about the billionaire CEO marrying his former housekeeper. Some of the coverage was positive, focusing on their love story and Benjamin's transformation from ruthless businessman to philanthropist. Other articles were more cynical, suggesting various ulterior motives on both sides. "Does it bother you?" Benjamin asked one morning, showing her a particularly nasty gossip column piece. Amara glanced at the article and shrugged. "People who don't know us are going to think whatever they want to think. What matters is what we know to be true." Benjamin smiled and pulled her close. "Have I mentioned lately that I'm marrying the wisest woman in the world?" The wedding took place 8 months later in the mansion's garden, the same space where Benjamin had proposed. Amara's dress was simple but elegant, and Benjamin looked handsome in his classic black tuxedo. What made the day truly special, though, was the joy on everyone's faces. Amara's family was there, beaming with pride and happiness. James Rivera served as Benjamin's best man, and Eleanor Cross, now in her 70s but still sharp, gave a touching speech about how Amara had given her son not just his life back, but also his purpose. "To Benjamin and Amara," she concluded her toast, "who prove that love really can conquer all." After the ceremony, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Amara marveled at how perfectly everything had worked out. "No regrets?" Benjamin asked as he spun her around the dance floor. "Only one," Amara replied with a mischievous smile. "I wish I had spoken up sooner that night when I first noticed your symptoms. We could have had more time together." Benjamin laughed and pulled her closer. "We have the rest of our lives, Mrs. Cross." "Mrs. Cross." Amara loved the sound of it. Their honeymoon was spent in Italy, exploring ancient cities and eating incredible food. But even in the romantic atmosphere of Venice and Tuscany, they found themselves talking about their future plans and the research foundation they wanted to build together. "I've been thinking about the diagnostic device you're working on," Benjamin said one evening as they sat at a cafe overlooking the Grand Canal. "What if we could make it portable? Something that emergency responders could carry, or that could be used in remote clinics." Amara's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's brilliant. We could save so many lives in places where specialized medical equipment isn't available." When they returned from their honeymoon, they threw themselves into their work with renewed passion. Amara's PhD research was progressing beautifully, and her prototype diagnostic device was showing incredible promise in early trials. Benjamin had officially launched the Cross Medical Research Foundation, with Amara as the director of chemical research. 1 year after their wedding, Amara made a breakthrough that would change emergency medicine forever. Her portable diagnostic device could detect over 50 different toxins and poisons in under 5 minutes using just a drop of blood or saliva. "This is it," she told Benjamin excitedly as they reviewed the test results in her lab. "This could have saved you months of suffering if it had existed when you were being poisoned." Benjamin looked at the data with amazement. "How many lives do you think this could save?" "Thousands," Amara replied. "Maybe tens of thousands. Poisoning cases, drug overdoses, environmental toxin exposure. This device could help doctors identify the problem and start treatment immediately." The device, which they named the Cross Rapid Diagnostic System, went into production 6 months later. Within a year, it was being used in hospitals, clinics, and emergency response units around the world. The first time Amara heard that her invention had saved someone's life, she cried with joy. "A little girl in Kenya," she told Benjamin through her tears. "She was accidentally poisoned by contaminated water, and the doctors there were able to identify the toxin immediately using our device. She's going to be fine." Benjamin held her while she cried, overwhelmed by the realization that her work was actually making a difference in the world. "This is just the beginning," he promised her. "We're going to save so many more lives together." 2 years after their wedding, Amara successfully defended her PhD dissertation, becoming Dr. Amara Cross. Her research had already resulted in 3 groundbreaking medical devices and had established her as one of the leading experts in rapid diagnostic technology. At her graduation party, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues, Amara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. From invisible housekeeper to respected scientist, from abandoned dreams to a life beyond her wildest imagination. Speech, someone called out from the crowd. Amara looked around at all the faces, at the people who had supported her and believed in her, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 3 years ago, she began, I was cleaning this very room as a housekeeper, thinking my dreams of being a scientist were over forever. Tonight, I'm standing here as Dr. Amara Cross, surrounded by people I love, celebrating work that I hope will make the world a better place. She found Benjamin in the crowd and smiled at him. I learned that it's never too late to chase your dreams, especially when you have people who believe in you. And I learned that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. The crowd erupted in applause, but Amara only had eyes for her husband, the man who had changed her life in every possible way. Later that night, as they walked through their garden, Benjamin stopped at the bench where he had proposed. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't spoken up that night? He asked. Amara considered the question. Sometimes, but I don't dwell on it. We found each other, we saved each other, and now we're building something beautiful together. That's what matters. Benjamin pulled her close and kissed her forehead. I love you, Dr. Cross. I love you too, Mr. Cross. As they walked back to the house hand in hand, both of them knew that their story was far from over. They had a foundation to run, lives to save, and a love that would continue to grow stronger with each passing day. The future stretched out before them, full of infinite possibilities and endless hope. 5 years into their marriage, Benjamin and Amara Cross had built something remarkable together. The Cross Medical Research Foundation had become one of the most respected medical research organizations in the world, with facilities in 12 countries and a team of over 200 researchers working on projects ranging from rapid disease diagnosis to affordable treatment options for underserved populations. Amara, now 33 and an internationally recognized expert in diagnostic technology, split her time between research, teaching, and running the foundation's day-to-day operations. She had published dozens of papers, held patents on 15 medical devices, and had been invited to speak at conferences around the world. But for all her professional success, what made her happiest was the life she and Benjamin had built together. The clinic in Guatemala is reporting incredible results with the new diagnostic kits, she told Benjamin one morning over breakfast, reviewing the latest reports on her tablet. They've reduced their average diagnosis time from 6 hours to 30 minutes. Benjamin looked up from his own tablet, where he was reading about the Foundation's newest project, a research facility focused on developing treatments for rare childhood diseases. That's amazing, he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Do you realize we've probably saved thousands of lives over the past few years? Amara squeezed his hand, still sometimes amazed by the impact their work was having. We make a pretty good team, don't we? The best, Benjamin agreed. Their personal life was equally fulfilling. They had bought a smaller house in addition to the mansion, a cozy place near the university where Amara taught graduate courses in chemistry. They traveled frequently, both for work and pleasure, and had developed a circle of close friends who shared their passion for making a difference in the world. The only thing missing from their perfect life was something they both wanted but hadn't been able to achieve: children. They had been trying for over 2 years, and despite consultations with the best fertility specialists and several rounds of treatment, Amara hadn't been able to get pregnant. The disappointment was hard on both of them, but it had also brought them closer together. Maybe we should consider adoption, Amara said one evening as they walked through their garden. There are so many children who need loving homes. Benjamin stopped walking and turned to face her. Is that what you want? I want a family with you, Amara replied honestly. However that happens. 6 months later they were approved to adopt, and 3 months after that they received a call that would change their lives forever. There's a little girl, the social worker told them over the phone. She's 3 years old and her mother died in a car accident. She has no other family and she needs a permanent home. When Benjamin and Amara met Lily, they fell in love with her instantly. She was a beautiful child with bright brown eyes and an infectious smile, despite everything she had been through. More importantly, she seemed to connect with them immediately, climbing into Amara's lap during their first meeting and asking Benjamin to read her a story. The adoption process took several months, but finally, on a sunny Tuesday morning, Lily Cross officially became their daughter. Welcome home, sweetheart, Amara said as they walked into the mansion together, Lily holding both their hands. "This is really my house now?" Lily asked, looking around at the grand entrance hall with wide eyes. "This is really your house now," Benjamin confirmed. "Forever and always." Watching Benjamin with Lily was one of the most beautiful things Amara had ever seen. Despite having no experience with children, he was a natural father, patient and playful and endlessly loving. Lily adored him, and it wasn't uncommon to find them in the garden, Benjamin teaching her about flowers and butterflies, or in his study, Lily helping with his work by drawing pictures at his desk. "She's made us a real family," Amara told Benjamin one night after they had tucked Lily into bed. "We were always a real family," Benjamin replied. "She just made us complete." A year later they received another call from the adoption agency. Lily's best friend at daycare, a 4-year-old boy named Marcus whose elderly grandmother could no longer care for him, needed a home. When they met him, it was clear that he and Lily were inseparable, and Benjamin and Amara couldn't imagine separating them. "Two kids," Benjamin said as they drove home after meeting Marcus. "Are we ready for this?" Amara laughed, watching Lily and Marcus in the back seat, already planning what toys they would share when Marcus came to live with them. "I don't think anyone's ever really ready. But yes, I think we are." Marcus's adoption was finalized on Lily's 5th birthday, making it the best birthday party any of them had ever attended. The house was filled with laughter and chaos and joy, and Amara couldn't remember ever being happier. "Two down, how many more to go?" Benjamin joked that night as they watched their children sleeping peacefully in their beds. "Let's see how we handle these two first," Amara replied, though she was already thinking about the other children in the system who needed loving homes. Their family life was beautifully chaotic. Lily was artistic and dreamy, always creating elaborate stories and drawings. Marcus was practical and curious, constantly taking things apart to see how they worked. Both children were incredibly smart, and they loved spending time in Amara's lab conducting experiments, carefully supervised of course, and asking endless questions about how everything worked. "Mama Amara," Lily said one afternoon as she watched Amara work on a new diagnostic device, "are you making something that helps sick people?" "I am, sweetheart," Amara replied, lifting Lily up to get a better look at the equipment. "This machine will help doctors figure out why people are sick so they can make them better faster." "Like how you made Daddy better?" Marcus asked from his perch on a stool next to the lab bench. Amara smiled, remembering how she had explained to the children about how she and Benjamin had met. "Exactly like that. I want to help sick people too when I grow up," Lily announced. "Me too," Marcus added. "Can we work in your lab?" "You can work wherever you want when you grow up," Benjamin said, appearing in the doorway of the lab. "But right now it's time for dinner." As they walked to the dining room together, Lily on Benjamin's shoulders and Marcus holding Amara's hand, Amara marveled at how full her life had become. She had a career she loved, work that made a difference in the world, and a family that brought her more joy than she had ever thought possible. Sometimes the family you create is more beautiful than anything you could have planned. Have you ever experienced an unexpected blessing that turned out to be exactly what you needed? Share your story in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming tales of love, hope, and second chances. That night, after the children were asleep, Benjamin and Amara sat in their garden, enjoying the peace and quiet. "No regrets?" Benjamin asked, echoing the question he had asked on their wedding day. Amara looked back at the house, where their children were sleeping safely in their beds, then at her husband, the man who had changed her life in every possible way. "No regrets," she said with absolute certainty. "Just gratitude for all of it. The good times and the challenging times because they all led us here." Benjamin pulled her close and kissed her temple. "Here's to whatever comes next." "Here's to whatever comes next," Amara agreed, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together as a family. 7 years after Lily and Marcus joined their family, the Cross household was a bustling center of activity and love. At 12 and 11 years old respectively, both children had inherited their parents' intelligence and passion for helping others, though they expressed it in different ways. Lily had developed a talent for art therapy, spending hours creating beautiful drawings and paintings that she donated to children's hospitals. She had also shown an aptitude for chemistry, often joining Amara in the lab to conduct age-appropriate experiments. Marcus, meanwhile, had discovered a love for engineering and had already built several working robots with Benjamin's guidance. He was also incredibly empathetic, always the first to comfort a friend who was hurt or sad. "They're both going to change the world someday," Amara told Benjamin one evening as they watched their children working on their respective projects at the kitchen table. "They already are," Benjamin replied, pointing to the thank you letters covering the refrigerator from children who had received Lily's artwork and from classmates who had been helped by Marcus's kindness. The Cross Medical Research Foundation had continued to grow and evolve, now operating in 25 countries and employing over 500 researchers. Their diagnostic devices were used in hospitals around the world, and their treatment protocols had saved countless lives. But it was a phone call they received on a Tuesday morning that brought their story full circle in the most unexpected way. "Mrs. Cross?" The voice on the phone was unfamiliar. "This is Detective Sarah Rodriguez with the State Police. I'm calling about Dr. Samuel Phillips." Amara felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of the man who had tried to murder Benjamin. Dr. Phillips had been sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder, and she hadn't thought about him in years. "What about him?" she asked cautiously. "He's being released next month. His sentence was reduced for good behavior and for cooperating with authorities in several other cases involving medical malpractice and insurance fraud. I wanted to let you know in case you wanted to take any security precautions." After Amara hung up the phone, she sat at her kitchen table feeling shaken. Benjamin found her there when he came home from the office, staring out the window at their children playing in the backyard. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, recognizing the expression on her face. When Amara told him about Dr. Phillips' impending release, Benjamin's reaction was calmer than she had expected. "I'm not surprised," he said, sitting down beside her. 25 years was a long sentence for a first-time offender, even for attempted murder. "Aren't you angry?" Amara asked. "He tried to kill you." Benjamin was quiet for a moment, considering her question. "I was angry for a long time. But that anger was eating me up inside. Eventually, I realized that holding on to it was only hurting me, not him." "So you forgave him?" "I chose to let go of the anger," Benjamin corrected. "That's not the same as forgiveness, and it doesn't mean I trust him or want him in our lives. But I refuse to let what he did continue to poison my life." 2 weeks later, they received an unexpected letter. It was from Dr. Phillips himself, written from prison. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Cross," it began. "I know I have no right to contact you, and I understand if you throw this letter away without reading it. But I needed to try to say something I should have said years ago. I am deeply, profoundly sorry for what I did. There is no excuse for my actions. I was drowning in debt and made a choice that nearly cost you your life, Mr. Cross. I betrayed my oath as a physician and violated the trust you placed in me. I have spent every day of the past 7 years thinking about the terrible wrong I did. I am not asking for your forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I am not asking to see you or have any contact with your family. I simply wanted you to know that I am sorry, and that I am grateful Mrs. Cross was there to save your life when I was trying to take it. I have spent my time in prison studying addiction counseling and peer support. When I am released, I plan to work with gambling addicts and others who are struggling with the same demons that led me to make such terrible choices. I hope that by helping others avoid the path I took, I can do some small good in the world. Again, I am deeply sorry. I wish you and your family all the happiness in the world. Samuel Phillips." Amara read the letter twice, feeling a complex mix of emotions. "What do you think?" she asked Benjamin. "I think he sounds genuine," Benjamin replied. "And I think it probably took a lot of courage to write that letter. Do you want to respond?" Benjamin considered this for a long time. "I think I do, actually." Benjamin's response was brief but kind. "Dr. Phillips, thank you for your letter and your apology. While what you did caused tremendous pain and nearly cost me my life, I appreciate your honesty and your commitment to helping others avoid similar mistakes. I wish you success in your new path and hope that you are able to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Benjamin Cross." When Dr. Phillips was released from prison, he kept his word. He took a job at a community clinic in a different state, working with addiction recovery programs and peer support groups. He never attempted to contact the Cross family again, but they occasionally heard through mutual connections about the good work he was doing. "It's strange," Amara said one evening as they discussed an article they had read about Dr. Phillips' work with gambling addicts. "In a weird way, what he did led to everything good that's happened in our lives." Benjamin nodded. "If he hadn't poisoned me, you never would have had the opportunity to discover it. We never would have fallen in love, never would have started the foundation, never would have adopted Lily and Marcus." "I'm not saying I'm grateful it happened," Amara clarified quickly. "I know," Benjamin said, pulling her close. "But I understand what you mean. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things in our lives." As if summoned by their conversation about gratitude and second chances, Lily and Marcus burst into the room, full of excitement about a school project they were working on together. "Mom, Dad," Lily said breathlessly. We want to start a fundraiser for kids whose parents are in the hospital. Marcus had the idea after visiting Mrs. Patterson in the hospital with her granddaughter. We could raise money for books and games and stuff to make the waiting rooms better for kids, Marcus added eagerly. Amara and Benjamin exchanged a look of pride and amazement. Their children, who had both experienced loss and uncertainty before joining their family, were naturally drawn to helping others who were going through difficult times. That's a wonderful idea, Benjamin said. How can we help? As they sat around the kitchen table planning the fundraiser, Amara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them all together. From a desperate housekeeper noticing symptoms that doctors had missed, to a thriving family dedicated to healing and helping others. The path hadn't always been easy, and there had been challenges and setbacks along the way. But every step had led them to this moment, surrounded by love and purpose and the knowledge that they were making a difference in the world. Life has a funny way of working out, she murmured to Benjamin as they watched their children enthusiastically planning their charity project. The best kind of funny, he agreed, squeezing her hand under the table. Outside, the garden where they had shared so many important moments was in full bloom, a testament to growth and renewal and the beauty that could emerge from even the darkest times. 10 years had passed since Dr. Phillips' release from prison, and the Cross family had continued to grow and thrive in ways that exceeded even their wildest dreams. Lily, now 22, had just graduated from medical school and was beginning her residency in pediatric oncology. Marcus, 21, was finishing his degree in biomedical engineering and had already designed 3 medical devices that were being tested for commercial production. Both of their children had chosen careers that would allow them to carry on the family tradition of healing and helping others, though neither had felt pressured to do so. They had simply been raised in an environment where service to others was valued above all else, and it had become a natural part of who they were. I still can't believe our little girl is Dr. Lily Cross, Amara said as she and Benjamin watched their daughter receive her medical degree at the graduation ceremony. And Marcus is about to be featured in Medical Device Weekly for his artificial organ prototype, Benjamin added proudly. Remember when he was 4 and taking apart every electronic device in the house? I remember you being convinced he was going to electrocute himself, Amara laughed. The Cross Medical Research Foundation had evolved into something beyond anything they had originally imagined. With facilities on every continent and partnerships with major universities and hospitals around the world, their work had directly saved over 100,000 lives and indirectly influenced the saving of countless more. Amara, now 43, was regularly invited to speak at international conferences and had been awarded numerous honors for her contributions to medical science. She had published over 200 papers and held patents on 43 medical devices. But what she was most proud of was the scholarship program she and Benjamin had established, which had helped over 10,000 students from disadvantaged backgrounds pursue careers in medicine and science. Benjamin, at 55, had transitioned most of his business interests to focus entirely on philanthropy and medical research. He had been recognized by the United Nations for his humanitarian work and had been invited to advise governments around the world on healthcare policy and medical research funding. But for all their professional success and public recognition, what brought them the greatest joy was their family and the life they had built together. They had adopted 3 more children over the years, twin girls they had taken in when Lily was 15, and a teenage boy who had aged out of foster care when Marcus was 18. Their house was always full of laughter, arguments, homework help, and the organized chaos that comes with raising 5 children. Sometimes I look around at all of this and wonder if it's real, Amara told Benjamin one evening as they sat in their garden, watching their youngest daughters play on the swing set while their older children worked on various projects around the yard. It's real, Benjamin assured her, taking her hand. And it's ours. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Amara with a trip back to Italy, to the same cafe in Venice where they had first talked about making her diagnostic device portable. Do you remember what we discussed here? He asked as they sat at the same table, looking out over the Grand Canal. How to make the diagnostic device portable for emergency responders, Amara replied. That conversation led to saving thousands of lives. It also led to this, Benjamin said, pulling out a small jewelry box. Amara looked at him in confusion. Benjamin, we're already married. I know, he said, opening the box to reveal a new ring, even more beautiful than her original engagement ring. But I wanted to ask you again. Will you marry me again, Amara? Will you choose me again, knowing everything we've been through and everything we still want to accomplish together? Tears sprang to Amara's eyes. Of course I will. I would choose you in every lifetime, in every universe, under any circumstances. They renewed their vows 6 months later in the same garden where they had been married the first time, surrounded by their 5 children, their extended family, friends, colleagues, and representatives from the dozens of organizations they had helped over the years. 15 years ago, Amara said in her speech at the reception, I was a housekeeper who had given up on her dreams. I thought my story was already written, and it was a small, quiet story about sacrifice and making do with less than I had hoped for. But I learned that our stories are never finished as long as we're still alive to write them. I learned that love can come from the most unexpected places, and that when we open our hearts to possibility, incredible things can happen. Benjamin saved my life by believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Our children saved our hearts by teaching us what unconditional love really means. And our work has saved thousands of other lives, which saves our souls by giving us purpose beyond ourselves. I used to think that fairy tales were just stories we told children to help them sleep at night. But now I know that fairy tales are real. They just don't always look the way we expect them to. After the ceremony, as the reception continued into the evening, Benjamin and Amara slipped away to their favorite bench in the garden. Any regrets? Benjamin asked, continuing their tradition. Amara looked back at the party where their children were dancing with their friends, where colleagues from around the world were celebrating with them, where the evidence of their incredible life together was on display for everyone to see. None, she said with absolute certainty. Not a single one. What do you think comes next? Benjamin asked. Amara considered the question. Lily was starting her residency and talking about specializing in treating children with rare cancers. Marcus was already fielding offers from major medical device companies and seemed likely to start his own research firm. Their younger children were all showing signs of brilliance and compassion that suggested they would find their own ways to make the world better. I think, she said slowly, that we keep doing what we're doing. Keep loving each other, keep raising our children to be good humans, keep working to heal the world one person at a time. That sounds perfect to me, Benjamin said, pulling her close. As they sat together in the garden where their love story had truly begun, surrounded by the sounds of celebration and the evidence of lives well lived, both of them knew that their greatest adventure was still ongoing. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities they couldn't even imagine yet. There would be new challenges, new discoveries, new lives to save, new love to share. Their children would grow up and start their own families, their work would continue to expand and evolve, and their love would continue to deepen with each passing year. I love you, Dr. Amara Cross, Benjamin said, using her full title with the same pride he had shown the day she earned her PhD. I love you too, Benjamin Cross, she replied. Forever and always. As the stars came out above them and the party continued around them, they knew that they had truly found their happily ever after. Not because their lives were perfect, but because they had learned to find joy in the imperfections, strength in the challenges, and hope in the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Their story had begun with near tragedy and invisible heroism. It had grown through trust, love, and the courage to believe in dreams that seemed impossible. And it would continue generation after generation, through the lives they had saved, the children they had raised, and the love they had shared with each other and with the world. The housekeeper who had noticed what 50 doctors missed had become so much more than she had ever dared to dream. And the billionaire who had nearly died had found something more valuable than all his wealth combined. A life filled with love, purpose, and the knowledge that every day was a gift to be treasured and shared. In the end, their story was proof that the most extraordinary lives can begin with the most ordinary moments, and that love really can conquer all when it's combined with hope, courage, and the willingness to see possibilities where others see only problems. The invisible had become invaluable. The impossible had become inevitable. And two people who might never have met under different circumstances had created a legacy that would outlast them both, touching lives and healing hearts for generations to come.